Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm so grateful to have a wonderful human being, Trina Casey, joining me today. A new friend who I'm going to bring on to the stage now. Hello, Trina. How are
Hello.
you?
Good. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, and I'm glad we had a couple of minutes before we came on live because it's just that thing of like, let's just to make it really clear for everybody out there who may be joining us or watch or listen to this back. You and I have had a fairly recent engagement via LinkedIn.
Mhm.
This is the first time I had a conversation. Yet we spoke for 2 minutes before, and it's like I've known you forever. That's possible, right? That's possible.
It is. It's a vibe. They're vibing. Yeah.
And you can sing. Okay, you're going too much now. You're going
Oh,
too
don't
much
let me
now.
get there. Don't let me go there.
Well, I just want to say, so what we're actually doing today, for anyone that might have been following me for a while, I've been playing a game. I'm not belittling the topics, but gamifying a topic around two packs of cards. These decolonial future cards, without modernity, and the listening deck from my good friend Jane Hadted Grant. And Trina very kindly saw me go live one time and was like, hey, I've got some thoughts about that. So I thought, hey, we're going to pick a couple of random cards today, have a chat about what comes up for each of us around those two cards. And I think that'll be the catalyst maybe just for a sort of chat for 10, 15 minutes, Trina. How does that feel for you?
That sounds great. It's perfect.
Cool. But however, you also do something else with the cards you just told me.
Oh
So
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
hear more about that
Oh,
before
you
we
can
get
put me on
going.
blast on that? You can
Yeah.
put me on that was a
You don't
private
have
thing.
to. You don't have
People
to. You don't have
people
to.
no, I'm joking. I know I do read tarot cards for myself and privately, and for those who are can pay me a couple thousand to do it. But
We know
I
you're out
do.
there.
I know you're not that. I've been reading cards for about mm, wow, since I was about 18.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's just a part of my spiritual journey, connection, vibing with the powers that be, my ancestors. So yeah,
Beautiful. I love that. I just want to
yeah.
invite people, again, if you're watching live or watch this back, do check out Trina's website, or sorry, LinkedIn at least, where you can find other details about Trina below. And let's get going then, and let's see what these cards pop up. So again, the background to this is like, why the hell? Let's have a bit of fun. Why is this Caucasian white guy talking about decoloniality? Why does he give a shit? I'll tell you why. I didn't a few years ago because, like most of us, when we're brought up in a system that's there to make us completely blind to what's going on, that's what happens. I was blind. But I'm pleased to say, there's probably a song in this, Trina. I'm now
Mhm.
starting to see a little bit more. But anyway, what I'm doing is I'm currently mixing up the listening deck, and I'm going to pick a random. Tell me when to stop, Trina.
Okay. Now,
Okay, the one that you picked is this one.
ah,
Oh,
ooh,
self-listening.
ooh, read that one.
So pausing and getting present with yourself, noticing your thoughts and feelings,
Mm.
asking yourself, what am I assuming about myself,
Mm.
others, or the situation that is either helping me or hindering me in this situation?
I'm an emotional intelligence coach,
Yeah,
right? That's self awareness. That's the first principle.
how fascinating. So that's the first half of our game today, Trina.
Hmm.
The universe delivers every single time.
Every single time. Every single time.
And by the way, if anyone's watching this seriously and you're going like, who are these two crazy people talking about like spirituality and cards and self-listening? There's a meaningful purpose to this. And apart from being spiritual is what we are. But tell me when to stop this pack of cards,
Okay.
Trina.
Now,
Okay. So this one is it's a fragility question. In what
ah,
ways could you be operating from the body memory of traumatic experiences?
well, another self awareness thing. Yeah.
So,
And
like magic, we've got self listening, and in what ways could we be operating from a body of traumatic experiences? I'm wondering what pops up for you in the moment around those two cards together, Trina, if I may ask.
wow. Wow. It's whew. That's a deep conversation. One of the things that I always try to get people to do is ground themselves in themselves before they start picking apart the other things, because that trauma piece is so profound. But a lot of times, because we are programmed in a patriarchal system to ignore our emotions, to ignore the what I call the signposts and data to help us heal, grow, um, find our purpose and motivation and pathway for fulfilling life, to produce for other entities that don't have us in mind. They don't care how we feel. And so I think one of the biggest fears of the patriarchy and the systems all connected to it is once we actually have that grand awakening, there's no putting us back in the box.
So I've just had a whole back of neck and head reaction to what you just shared, because it resonates so. And this is, I'd love to offer and build on what you just shared, Trina. For me, as someone that works within a big corporate still, and
Mhm.
also does work on the outside, the very people perpetuating the harm, the lack of care, the lack of love, are themselves harming themselves.
That's right. Mm, that's right. 1000%. And then they pass on all that pain to everybody else. It's an ugly cycle. And what we were talking about a moment ago is all we have to do is stop. Just say, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. But there's so much pressure to conform. And I remember I lived in Montreal at one point for 3 years. And not that this didn't happen in the US, but this scene is forever burned into my mind. There was a man who was in the middle of traffic on Saint Laurent, right? He had long, shaggy hair. His eyes were a little wild, and he was clearly a homeless person. And he was screaming, "None of this is real. It's all an illusion. We can do whatever we want. Stop." He's screaming at the top of his lungs until the police came and removed him out of the middle. And I'm sitting here going, oh, wow. That is what being connected to spirit really is, because what we say is scary has been traditionally the ways of the shamans and Aboriginal people who basically downloaded information, and these cards are a perfect example, and said, here's the message, please pay attention, please pay attention. And and when I did ayahuasca, that image came again in my mind, and I said, he was so right. But what happens to people who speak up?
I'm literally, I'm literally, my whole my upper back and neck is just going seriously, because it's so interesting for me, Trina, as someone that, like I say, is in the corporate space outside, seeing the amount of self-harm, to come back to this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Self-listening, and in what ways we operating from the body of traumatic experience. Those things for me, what's coming up for me in that is, are we listening to ourselves, our body, enough?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we allowing the traumatic experiences or the fear
Mm.
to basically just tune that self-listening out, right? We're actually
Mm.
choosing the trauma over self-awareness, because
Mm-hmm.
there's some weird, I'm going to write a blog soon, Stockholm syndrome. I feel like there's a mass Stockholm syndrome. It's literally like, you're my abuser system.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather conform and accept what you tell me because you pay me money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically, yeah, you own me. Like, you own me. I'm giving away my power and agency to you. in return for what I perceive to be comfort and safety.
Mm-hmm.
But at any time, you can cut me adrift.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. You used one of my favorite terms, Stockholm syndrome, because I talk about it. I've talked about it on several episodes of my podcast. I have a podcast, EQ Above IQ, Parenting with Emotional Intelligence and Healing the Inner Child. And one of the things, the reason why I actually called it EQ Above IQ is because of what we're talking about right now. To make people understand above the intellectual, above the materialistic things that we get stamped on our forehead for having a value, like our IQ, our intellect, all the degrees, all that stuff. It's nothing compared to your emotional intelligence, to your ability to sense, understand, connect with people. Because if you can't do that well, it doesn't matter how much intellect you have, it's not going to work. And if it does work, it's going to be in such a inauthentic, false way. Some people think there's a trick to winning friends and approval. There's a whole book about it, with I think winning influence and friends.
Yes.
You know that book? It's
Yeah,
old,
yeah, yeah.
1960s, something like that. And there's tricks how to manipulate, because that's all it is. It's a huge manipulation. And wow. It is definitely Stockholm syndrome, because everybody has fallen in love with the trappings of what we think success and happiness are. And like you said, those CEOs, those CFOs, those tops are actually miserable, drinking themselves to death, drugging themselves to death, buying themselves just all the Bugattis and all these things to try to feel valid, to love themselves. And they don't need any of that to do that. They have to just stop doing what they're doing. Care about people.
And do you know what I love, though, is like the lack of judgment in this exploration that we've had from these two cards, right? We're not judging anyone.
No.
It's it's actually very empathetic. It's like, why do you want to keep doing that to yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that's the grand invitation for me. It's like, why keep doing it to ourselves? I'm so curious.
Well, empathy is one of the 5 principles of emotional intelligence or compassion. They're kind of the same. And I could choose to be extremely angry and hate people who don't look like me, but I see how that has worked out. Okay. And so why would I repeat the toxicity of hating and putting down and just berating people for something they clearly have no consciousness about, or they're so used to the trauma, it's embedded in how they function. But nobody's ever said, hey, turn on the light bulb and just stop doing it and let's see how you feel. How's that going to feel to just stop?
You've really just 4 letters. Stop.
Yes,
You've mentioned it 4 or 5 times in this beautiful exploration already.
Mm-hmm.
Yet how many more times do we, inverted commas, but particularly those with power and influence, need to hear that word before they actually give themselves permission to do it? Really, Do you think there's something with your work, Trina? Again, I'm hypothesizing. Is there something about this Stockholm, like the busyness, so scared to feel because they're so conditioned not to, that's why they keep running.
Absolutely. You know, you ever been in that position, and I'm sure you have, in that position where you're just like, all of a sudden, you have the epiphany, and then you want to kick yourself, and you're almost even embarrassed that it took you. Okay, the key, I ran around the house looking for those keys. The keys were in the door the whole time, right? So that's how I think a lot of these people may feel, that if they admit just how wrong they are, and this is deeply embedded in the narcissism of our culture and society too. I have to add that every bit of the patriarchal colonial mindset is based in narcissism. Okay. And what is the root problem of narcissism is that narcissists can't see that they're narcissist. So here is where we're at as a culture, a global culture. You have these 5 or 6 families at the very top who have been deeply narcissistic and said, I'm going to go around the whole world. And guess what? This is mine now. Oh, so what if there are people there? We'll just get you out of the way, you know? But how unbelievably narcissistic is that to say, this is mine now? It's like a child, you know? And I will kill, murder, lie, scheme, and do whatever it takes to make it so. Now, I won't put down their determination and drive, but there's something sick about that. There's something seriously like infantile about it, because only little children do that. I mean, it's like they never grew up because they never had to. You know, they never had to feel empathy because these are the crown jewels and everything else, and you're preordained for it. And that, I think, is the crux of the problem with white supremacy, patriarchal structures, everything. And you can't separate them. Misogyny, it's all interconnected. So you can't cherry pick and say, well, we're going to focus on this piece, the misogyny, and give women jobs now. Still didn't work, right? Didn't work because it just fed an insecurity in men who are in power, and then they just started acting more crazy, you know, having tantrum. I call them mantrums, you know.
I love that. I've never heard that before. That is so good. That is so good.
And it's everybody else's fault, but there's no self-reflection on how we got here. And that's why it's in the past. Why do we keep talking about it? That's old. That's old. You can't fix the future without understanding how we got there, got to now. You can't fix it until we do that. And so if you just release the fear of being wrong, of being seen as bad or anything else, because I don't think most people who are not, I don't think people who are peach, whatever color you want to call yourself, whatever label you want to put it on yourself, I don't think they understand that it's a numbers game. And if the rest of us, of Rainbow Coalition, decided we wanted to bye-bye, I think it would be pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know? That I think, yeah, it wouldn't take much, but that's not the spirit. That's not the spirit of community Ubuntu of we are collectively connected. I don't want that karma on me. So I don't know. Yeah, I could really talk about this, but we only got 15 minutes. So.
To be honest, I'm sensing there's a version 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 100 to come, Trina, to be honest. But genuinely, I just want to honor and respect and thank you for your balance and your poise and your clarity around how you communicate, what you know to be true, right? Which is we are equally human. So there's some really bad ones out there, of course, a lot of harm,
Yeah.
but we also acknowledge that they're hurting and they've got to stop hurting themselves so everyone else can get on with their lives.
Yes.
Like that, you know what I mean? It's just it's not that complex. It is complex, but it's not complex. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just again, stop. It's like when I have to tell my son, who is impulsive because he's young, he's immature, he can't regulate his emotions as easily. He's learning how to do those processes. And I just say, hey, stop. Just stop. Stop wiggling. Just sit still for a minute. Stop. And then all of a sudden he decompresses. It's like, okay. Because we're overstimulated as a culture, as a global culture, we're overstimulated because they've been throwing distractions at us constantly so that we stay out of power of ourselves. So watch this, listen to that, buy this, eat that. And the whole time, most of the stuff that they're programming us with is unhealthy and separates us further from ourselves, and from each other in the meantime. So social media didn't make things more social, did it?
No, but there's sure a lot more advertising in the media.
It sure is. Man, I didn't know I needed to buy that thing I bought until I saw that. It's just, it's nuts. It's just a lack of awareness. I think people just lack the awareness, and we're just children looking for guidance because we know we're lost. Everybody feels that innately, that there's a disconnect, and they can't put their finger on it because they haven't been given the silence and the space to stop, to reflect and go, what's that nothingness? That's not too scary. I thought I'd be terrified of silence. Feels kind of good.
In fact, it's where the innovation and the insight comes from, right? And I've got to get you, I'm putting it out to the universe. I also do a community campfire live stream with my colleague Shahana, and it's all about emergence. And how do we co-create new narratives that take us from where we are into the new reconnected world? And if, as and when you're up for it, my God, we need you on that show. It's really, because it's really focused on the corporations, like exactly. And you're pointing so beautifully at that point of allow yourself to be vulnerable and sort of just sit in that discomfort of your body not running anywhere. Mm-hmm. But guess what might emerge from that, particularly when you're with others in that space?
It's amazing. It's amazing how profound it can be to truly connect. I have done these meditation groups, and it's my chiropractor who invited me. He said, I just think you would really enjoy this, So I went to it, and he had done the biofeedback things and the EKGs and all that kind of stuff to map his brain and what it felt like to be in an actual meditative state. And he said that he did it with a group. And what the researchers found was everybody got on the same mental wavelength.
Wow.
It was powerful. And having these little discussions after, talking about what colors we saw, what shapes we saw, just to see the resonance that can happen when the collective come together and get on the same page.
I think you've just done a. We didn't know where we were going to go with these two cards. Self-listening. Two little random cards. A fragility question. Just want to offer again. Anybody, you can go and buy these online. Decolonialfutures.net and Jane Hadzed Grant's listening deck. You've just modelled. I don't think if I never do another one of these again, this is just modelled just the amazing value of emergence.
No, do more. This is great. This is great. I really have enjoyed watching you do these, and I would love to come on your other show, Campfire.
Oh yes, please. Oh, it'd be incredible. But because the thing I find so heartening and exciting about the work you're doing, Trina, to be honest, is just you've got that. You work the young people angle. You've got the big picture systems angle. You've got the lived experience angle. You just bring that intersectionality through what you're doing. It's so clear, just literally learning with and from you today, and seeing the work that you do. You can just see the power of that grounding, right? Pulling on all those different all those different spheres, and going right.
Mm-hmm.
This is for all of you. This is for all of you. I'm not holding it in clenched fists just for my 20 people here or for this particular demographic over there. You're just. I just want to. Just honestly, I've always got a tear in my eye. It's just amazing.
No, virtual hug.
Seriously, but it's about modelling, right? And I think this is the invitation for these big leaders as well. My question to you is, what are you modelling today? And what if every one of your employees was a relative? Would you still make the same decisions? Would you still lead with the same thought processes,
No, I know I wouldn't, because I am so keenly aware that my family members have a lot of work to do. And I'm the proverbial black, white sheep of the family. And it's true. I am the one that they call it the scapegoat too. So I try to bring the truth that I understand as I remember even as a child. I know that feeling. And when you just know, even as a child, about 5 years old, I would look at the Earth, Wind, and Fire album cover, and I'd see Abu Simbel, and I say, I have to go there. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not connected to this place, and I'm speaking of the United States, so I'm not connected to this place. There's something more. And so I knew very young I had a spiritual path, but I knew also I was going to have a lot of obstacles in the way to get there. So, but it's through the suffering that you get the most profound messaging. And some people get it, some people don't. I fully accept that everybody's at a different place. And that's why I started coaching too, because I think that a lot of people, they just need to hear the voice of comfort, and that they're not bad people. We're all living in this very sick reality that none of us created. And as soon as we kind of say, okay, I can forgive myself for all of that crappy stuff I thought about myself, because they told me to think all this crappy stuff about me. They've been telling me I'm not a good person, that I'm not worthy, that to be a man, I must be this, to be a woman, I must do this, to be a child, I'm seen and not heard. all of these, all this messaging has been perpetuated for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it came from some pretty sick inbred people, I gotta tell you. You know, if you really want to dig into the feudal European system, and man, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah. On that note, yeah, that's a whole nother show, Trina.
It's a whole nother show.
Maybe a series of 3.
It's all connected.
It's all deeply connected. Thank you for your time. I'm really grateful to have got to know you deeper and better today. And wow, Shahana and I will definitely be seeing you on the campfire without a doubt. And everyone, again, just a reminder, if you're just popping on live now, do check out Trina's work below. This Real Life Books on LinkedIn. And yeah, just wow. You're an amazing human. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Take care, everyone.